All right, so the only tools you'll need for today's training lesson are really just simple. First one will be hot dogs. So we like to use hot dogs because they have a strong odor and it really helps the dog out, especially in the early stages of training. All you're gonna do is get hot dogs, slice them up, and then cut them again in halves. Just make them small pieces so the puppy doesn't get too much in its mouth, drop it on the ground, and then what's going to happen is a lot of times I call it a handler error. When hot dogs end up on the ground, dogs start smelling the ground instead of focusing on your hand, which is really where we want the focus to be. The second tool that you're going to use today is going to be a leash. Just a regular 6-foot leash. I like to use leather. They last really long. They're all weather. Nylon, especially if you got a puppy that chews, it just doesn't last as long. I've had better luck with leather. That's what I like to use. And really, we are going to stay with a 6-foot leash for a while. And really, this is where the crawl stage happens, where we're going to build the foundation of the dog. But I do want to highlight how important hot dogs are. Hot dogs are going to be the driving force with everything that we do. This is where most errors are made by new handlers or new pet owners that think all of the control needs to come from the leash. That's actually incorrect. So for the first several weeks, actually I would even say a month and a half, I'm gonna drive the dog mostly with my right hand in hot dogs. We'll get to a stage when we'll switch hands and we'll do a bunch of crazy stuff, but I'll show you that later on. But for now, hot dogs are key, and get yourself a good 6-foot leash. And then the last thing is just a decent collar. You don't need to get anything crazy. I'll talk to you in a separate video about tools and the right kinds of collars to get later on. But for now, just a regular nylon collar that will fit the dog will work just fine. So today with Sophie, and the reason why we're front heeling and we're building front heeling is it's all about teaching the dog basically 3 or 4 things using 2 words. So in training today, you're gonna hear me say, Sophie here. What I'm teaching her is her name, programming her name essentially, right? And then I'm also teaching her where to come. So she's gonna come front and sit without a sit command. So remember I talked about multiple things happening, 2 words, right? So, and we're gonna keep doing that. We're gonna keep moving, Sophie here, Sophie here. She's gonna sit every time, and when she sits, I'm gonna reward her. And then as she gets better, I'll delay longer, I'll move more, and you'll see that again through training. And then the other reason why front heeling is kind of this foundational stage is so eventually when we get to side heeling, anytime I'm stopped, she's gonna be stopped and automatically be in a sit. So we've all seen those folks walking around telling their dog, sit, sit, sit. You won't have to do that with your dog using this method. And the ultimate goal is your dog is 100 yards away playing with your kids. You see the Amazon truck roll up and you want your dog to come just so you have control. And that should simply sound like Sophie here. She's gonna come front, sit, and then maybe I put her in a down is down and stay. We'll talk about down is down and stay later on. So as discussed, this is the first part of our series. And here we have Sophie B-Litter from Von Patiala. Dang, AJ, I keep messing it up, I'm sorry. But what a gorgeous dog. She's a bicolor, comes from just a super pedigree. Big head, big nose, big bone. All of the things that you kind of look for first in a puppy. But really what's exciting, and I think you guys are gonna see throughout this video, is her nerve structure. Really solid dog. And so we're gonna start training. And one thing I really wanna just kind of hit on is the only training this dog has had, because this is the transparency part that I really want to get after here, is she's had no training other than some potty training in the house. That is all. So this will be the first time she wears a leash, and guess what? You guys will all go through the same process when you get your puppy. When you put the leash on for the first time, she's probably going to fight the leash. Now, one of the ways we're going to combat fighting the leash is we're going to use a reward. And this is a nice thing, just like I talked about with programming in the first video, is I'm going to use something that drives the dog, or will make her want something. And so what I'm going to use is hot dogs. Hot dogs smell super strong, and I'm actually going to try to drive her with just my right hand. So I'm going to get her set up with the leash, and then we'll get started. See, and you can already see that she's fighting the collar. I got the leash on her now, and now just watch and see what happens when she has a leash on her and figures out that she gets a few tugs. So you can already see that she's not a fan of that, right? So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to show her that I have hot dogs. That is going to get her to kind of stop focusing on the fact that she has a leash on her, and then we can get started with training. And then I'll talk about some of the things that we're doing, and really doing multiple things with just one command. So how I'm going to get her out of the leash is just like I talked about. I'm going to show her that I have hot dogs. Good girl. So now what I want to do is I'm going to teach her her name, and I'm going to let her jump a little bit. That's why I'm wearing jeans. That's okay. I'm going to teach her her name, and I'm going to tell her Sophie, and then I'm going to tell her here. And then she's going to sit on command. I'm not going to open my hand and give her the food until she sits. So what that's going to eventually do for us is anytime I'm stopped, the dog should be sitting. So here I'm going to show her I have the food. Sophie, Sophie, here. Good girl, Sophie. So she's also learning to take hot dogs for the first time. Sophie, here. Come here, Sophie. Come here. Here, Sophie. As soon as she stops in SIT, I can't give it to her. Yep, nope. As soon as she stops in SITs, so I can't give it to her unless she stops and sits. There she goes. Now she gets the reward. Sophie, here. Here. See, I'm really driving her with the right hand. The leash isn't doing too much. And then I get my hand up and reward. Good girl, Sophie. Good girl. Sophie, here. 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 Here, Sophie. Here. Reward. So you can already see now in just a few times of doing that, she's just going to stay in a sit. Sophie, here. Here. Good girl. Sophie, here. 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 Good girl, Sophie. Okay, and you can see in just 2 minutes, the dog is actually you can kind of see how she understands when I'm not moving, she's going to be in an SIT. And you can also see, hey, if I keep working this, I'm going to program the dog. That's also why I use a 6-foot leash. We call this the 6 feet of influence. We'll talk about more training tips and tricks to do working in front heeling, but that's what we're working right now is front heeling. So eventually she will just be focused on me and she'll stop whenever I stop. And that's okay for now that she's jumping a little bit. She'll learn out of that in just a moment. Sophie, here. Come here, Sophie. Sophie, here. And you can also see how my mannerisms change with the excitement of the dog. Sophie, here. Here. Oh, that's great. Sophie, here. Here. Good girl. Good. And then now your dog has just been started in front heeling and now knows to come front and sit anytime when your dog is 60 yards away. You can say, Sophie, here, the dog will come front and sit. And this is the beginning stages of how to get your dog to do that. But again, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.